Hello everybody, what's going on? This is Jose, and I thought I would finally do a proper showcase and video tutorial on how VTweaks works and what all it does. So let's go ahead and get started, because a lot of people don't know that it actually does quite a crazy amount of cool stuff. So one of the first things that you can see already, I've got my game paused on a brand new world. This is the first time I've ever opened this world. Now this happens if you join a server for the first time, if you make a new world. This only shows up once, but a little chat message will appear that says welcome. Seems like this is your first time running VTweaks in this world. Here's a link to an online wiki if you're interested, and keep in mind that some features may be disabled. This is more or less like if you're in a server or a preset mod pack. And if you click on this VTweaks link, it'll take you straight to the wiki page, which is hosted by GitHub. And the wiki page kind of more or less shows you everything that the pack can do. So the first thing I'm going to do is change a few rules. I'm actually just going to change it to peaceful temporarily to keep from being pestered. And I want to show you guys a few things real quick. So the first set of things that VTweaks will do is, and everything is configurable. If you take a look at the in-game config menu, there's actually mob tweak section, enchantment section, block tweak section, item tweak section, and a miscellaneous section. All of these have their proper sections, and most things seem to work pretty well. So, getting started, there's the feature called Challenger Mobs, and these two kind of go hand in hand. So there's Challenger Mobs and, oh, actually, here's another example. There's actually several really cool tweaks to mobs. So if I grab a pair of shears, I can actually shear feathers off of chickens. Only once. It'll damage the shears if you're not in creative. So if I go to survival mode, you can see I can't shear this chicken again. It has about a 5-minute cooldown. But you'll see it'll damage your shears once, and this will work with any mod shears. Now I actually only have VTweaks, Wyla, and JEI installed, but this will get you one feather every 5 minutes or so. The next thing you can do, if I have a wolf, and of course some bones, oops, let me change to cheat mode. With some bones, and let's say I had a pair of horse armor, which you can craft. So let me show you how to craft them first, and then you will see the effects of the horse armor here. So if I do XP, there we are. If I get a few levels, it'll take 35 for diamond, and it'll take even fewer for gold, 30 for gold, or 20 for iron. You can make iron horse armor with 2 sets of iron leggings, and your output item, it'll cost 20 levels, and you'll get a pair of, or a set of iron armor, horse armor, or gold, or diamond. Now, this does depend on both leggings being undamaged, so this does not work with damaged armor. I'm going to go ahead and make a pair of diamond horse armor. We're going to get ourselves a wolf. In fact, we'll need another one. I want to show you guys a comparison. We'll get a sword. Now, bear with me, this is going to be a little gruesome. If you're an animal lover like I am, at least, this is pretty rough. But there's only one way to test. So, if I right-click, you notice the horse armor is gone, and my dog doesn't look any different. And this is for a reason. I can't actually add any rendering to it without, like, crazy overhauls. So I've kept things as lightweight and simple with VTweaks as I possibly can. We're going to dye this guy cyan, that way we know he's the one wearing the horse armor. So if I have my sword here, it's fully charged. If I take one swing at him, and if I right-click, you'll see he's down 3.5 hearts. If I swing at this guy and right-click on him, you'll see he's only down half a heart. That's because this guy is equipped with no armor, but this guy is equipped with full diamond armor. So this is the equivalent of having full diamond armor on and no armor on. And of course, each tier will give different tiers of armor that they'll be equipped. So this one will give full gold armor, and this will give full iron armor. But this is just a nice way to keep your friendly pets alive. Now this also works on Ocelots. I'm not going to test it with a cat because getting a tamed cat requires commands or a very, very finicky situation, as you probably know, because taming cats is kind of a pain. But just things that we should definitely consider. Now, after doing that, I definitely feel obliged to at least heal up my friend here. We'll go ahead and heal up my other friend here. Thank you, guys. Don't harm animals. That was just for science. So, the next thing. we have this disabled by default, and there's a reason for that. However, you can disable spawning the Wither in the overworld. Now this is something that you can do for challenge packs, and this is something that you can do just if you want to keep people from blowing up the overworld. Now have it disabled by default, that's how it goes, and essentially if you do spawn it in, you'll actually get a little bit of a penalty, because you should know at this point if your server's allowed or not allowed to have overworld withers. But in the event that you didn't know, you'll get 2 of your skulls back and your soul sand, and the skulls will let you know about the inability to spawn the wither in the overworld, because like I said, that's just a rule that we have set, well, that your server will have set, or your pack will have set. So the next one is going to require me to gear up a little bit, so let's get ourselves in some armor. And really quickly, let's save and quit. And if I go to the mod options page, I can actually do a little bit of cool stuff with the mob tweaks here. If I go to the challenger mob's rarity, if I change this from 75 to 1, this means that every single challenger mob that spawns will, or every single mob that spawns will be a challenger mob. Now, all a challenger mob is basically a super buffed version of normal mobs. This works on any hostile entity, short of zombie pigmen. I've disabled it on them just because it gets ridiculous. And you can rename your classes here. Now you have to have these classes. You can't have more. You can't add or remove classes. You have to have this number of classes, but you can rename them if you want. So if you wanted to change this from Pyro or from Mage to, I don't know, Wizrobe, you most certainly can. And that's not going to be a problem. And a few of these configuration options do not actually require a restart. Fortunately, this is one of them. So with our full diamond armor and our sword, let's go ahead and turn it night. We'll change it to 18,000, that's midnight. And what we're going to see is as soon as I change it out of peaceful, we'll change it to easy, every single mob that spawns around here is going to have some sort of buff. This guy, like I said, Wizrobe skeleton. Now, sometimes, thanks to a bug with Forge, the mobs don't always work out the way I want them to, but you'll notice just then when I killed that guy, he was super fast, had a little bit less health than normal, but he dropped some weird stuff. A bottle of enchanting and an ender pearl and rotten flesh? That's not weird. Actually, yeah, that is weird. So all of these guys will spawn with fire resistance, and if I change it to daytime, you'll notice they're not going to burn, which is your problem now. These guys will not go away. And the Zestonian zombies, if they hit you, will knock you way back. That's a nice little homage to Zesto. And if I can manage to kill these guys, which it seems as though I'm kind of in trouble, the hungry skeleton's going to come after me with the sharpness bow. I might be in a little bit of trouble, but you can configure what all these guys drop, and it's actually really neat because some things that they drop, you can change them to drop stuff from other mods. So, for example, you're looking at it and you're thinking, wow, I really want this thing to be obtainable, but it might be really tough to get a hold of it. Then change your challenger mob rarity to be a little bit higher than default, maybe about 100, so there's a 1 in 100 chance, or 10, no, yeah, a 1% chance. Sorry, not 10. I should be better at math than I just claimed to be. So that there's a 1% chance of your challenger mob spawning, and then add the random loot table items. And the loot table items are completely randomized, so it was just random chance that this is what I got. I got my normal set of drops, and then an extra ender pearl, a diamond, an emerald, 4 gold, and various music discs. So this is just the default loot table. Oh, and 2 bottles of enchanting. So you'll notice some are different than others. The resilient spider, for example, walks a little bit slower, but not too much slower, but he has 160 health. Some of these other ones will run really quick. It really just depends. So depending on the mob, they may have extra health. It really just depends. Now one other thing, if I change it back to night, oops, we'll just do that. If I can get myself an enderman, actually let me get myself some notch apples. If I can find an enderman, or really just about anything, but an enderman will do. It looks like there's one over here. Something really nice about the enderman. Oh, here comes a hyper zombie. He usually cannot be outrun unless you're wearing something crazy like quantum armor. But that's not a problem. I thought I saw an enderman. Oh, there he is. So if I can take this guy out, not likely, but, oh yeah, especially not this one. But if I was able to take this guy out, then what you would notice is that once I do, and in fact, let me get rid of my ender pearls, there's a few mob drops that have been buffed. So squids will drop more ink stacks, endermen will always drop 1, if not more, ender pearls. So you'll see this guy dropped 2 rare items, the music disc and the bottle of experience, and he also dropped 2 ender pearls. So it's 1 plus the random chanced one. So that's really the biggest difference there, is that all of the mob drops have been buffed. And let's see, that pretty much covers that. The only other thing that I haven't done, or the only other thing that I've changed with mobs, is there's a configuration option to disable 2 of the most annoying mobs in vanilla Minecraft, if you ask me. One of them is to disable pig zombies in the Nether, and by doing this, this also reduces the spawn of gas. Otherwise, your Nether is going to become uninhabitable because of the ghasts. And the second one is bats. Now, I'm going to warn you, bats are not really a good idea to disable. In fact, I don't disable them anymore, but depending on your setup, you might be able to work around it. One of the biggest things that you'll find as an issue is some recipes require bats now from other mods, such as extra utilities, or even actually additions. Both of those will add features to bats that you'll kind of regret not having one around. So definitely use these options, you know, with different considerations in mind. I don't have either one of them disabled in my own personal use, but at one point I found that to be really useful. So V-Tweaks also adds a huge set of enchantments that you may not have actually been aware of, or you may not have known should be so important. So before Ender.io ever implemented it, I actually looked into an option of auto smelt, and I did forget to grab auto smelt one more time. But you can craft all of these books using various methods. So let me show you real quick some of the methods for crafting them. So if I grab any stair, and I'll need 16 of them. If I grab a book and quill, in fact I'm going to grab a handful of these. We'll grab a nether star. We'll also need, let me think. I was just thinking about it. Oh yeah, a golden axe. And then a bucket of lava. We can craft various books. So if I combine the nether star with the book and quill, we're actually going to get a hyper mending book. And I'll explain all these enchantments in a minute just to show you guys, but these are the recipes in case you couldn't find them. This will get us a hyper mending book. And this will get us a lumbering book. Book and quill plus lava will get you auto smelt. And a book and quill plus 16 of any kind of stair is going to get you a step boost book. So let me go ahead and show you all of these awesome enchantments one by one. So like I said, before Ender Core ever implemented auto smelt, I actually had already come up with one and was using it pretty actively. Ender Core added one, but I actually still like mine a little bit better, not to be snarky about it. So, the first thing you can see is I've got 2 pickaxes here, one with auto smelt and one with fortune and auto smelt. So if I use this auto smelt pickaxe on these ores, you'll notice I'm getting experience. This is the same amount that you would get if you used the furnace. And I just broke 10 iron ore and got 10 iron ingots. Now let's trash these and take a look at what happens if I use Fortune 3 plus the auto smelt. Just what you would think would happen, the Fortune modifier gets added on, and we got 27 from 10 ore. Pretty nifty, especially if you're playing vanilla and you don't have a method of modifying or doubling your ores. One other thing, there's another enchantment called lumbering, which might sound a little strange, and the recipe is a little bit strange, I will admit, but it does some really cool stuff. So, what lumbering does is we have here 2 different axes, and I'll show you each. If I hold shift, you have to hold shift to do this just to prevent this axe from being completely useless. If I hold shift and break the bottom block of a tree, you'll notice it breaks the entire tree. Now, this algorithm isn't perfect, but it's a handmade algorithm for finding the tree, so I hope that it works out okay for everyone. Like I said, it's not flawless. We'll just help this tree decay here, because it does take a while, and I did forget to install fast leaf decay. Now, one thing that a lot of people may not consider is that it actually works alongside auto smelt just fine. And so we just got a ton of our charcoal. And even furthermore, if I had fortune and auto smelt on this, I would have gotten even more charcoal. So just things to consider. Another enchantment that I add is, hyper mending. So it's normal mending, but it's not. It's better. Instead of it being just normal mending, it actually repairs instantly. It doesn't matter how much damage the tool has. If the tool is about to break and you put hyper mending on it, it will fully repair it from the beginning. And you'll notice this tool only has hyper mending, and it is never going to take damage. Now this works on any tool or any piece of armor. I have not put it on the armor just to show two other things that I do with enchantments. So the first one is step boost. You can probably guess what that does. As you can see, if I just walk over blocks, this gives me a 1 block step assist, and it's only 1 block, so you'll see it doesn't help here. It doesn't do anything with jumping, but if I do 1 block, I can actually go all the way up. Now, let's say I had a lot of falling distance. Now you notice you probably noticed, I don't know if you did or not, I actually have Feather Falling 4 on these boots. If you have Feather Falling 4 on a pair of boots, I've actually tweaked Feather Falling just a little bit. And essentially, if I go into debug mode to see the advanced tooltips, you'll see that I have 410 durability, and I have all of my hearts. If I take a dive off of this, what happened to my hearts? Well, I still have them all, but all of the hearts damage that I would have taken, which would have been 19, has been taken out of my durability instead. Pretty good deal, I would say. So the durability is going to be applied onto here. Now, nothing stops you from grabbing a hypermending book and slapping that on there. Boom, instantly repaired. And then if I teleport myself 64 blocks in the sky, quite a fall. Boots, just fine. Health, just fine. So this adds a nice little dynamic to the game that if you really want overpoweredness, you can add it. Now, on my general use case for a tech server, I do not enable hypermending. I usually keep it disabled, but I like all the other tweaks. So the last thing, if you've enchanted a tool and you decide that you no longer want the enchantment on there, you just kind of want to get everything off of there, if you don't have other mods such as Botania or Atomic Tinkerer, you can actually combine your tool with a piece of paper and you'll get the tool back without any of the enchantments. So this next part is actually pretty exciting to me. I've liked this part a lot, and this is one of my favorite parts of V-Tweaks that makes me miss it most whenever I play without it. So there's a handful of tweaks that are added, and the first one is easy crop harvesting. Once again, I kind of came up with my own method of doing this before Ender.io did its more modular method, but I still quite like mine. So if I bone meal all of these, and if I right-click on these to harvest, you'll see that it works exactly like you would expect a right-click to harvest work. Works on beetroots, and if this nether wart was fully grown, which is not quite yet, it also works there. One other thing that I see complaints about, though, is sometimes it doesn't work on things like cocoa beans, but not here. And one of the other things that I've noticed a lot of Minecrafters, especially in modded packs who normally play vanilla, they wonder, why doesn't this work? To which I ask, what do you mean? Works fine for me. Yep, that's right. V-Tweaks adds bone mealing to sugarcane and cactus. It does restrict your bone mealing to 2 blocks tall for both. You can't bone meal either one of them higher than that. One of the other things that a lot of people might bicker about is, oh man, hey look, someone put a cake down, but that's right exactly in my way. I need to move this cake, but if I break it, I'm going to destroy it, right? Wrong. With V-Tweaks, if you break it, as long as it hasn't been eaten, you'll get your cake back. Now, if you eat anything from this, which I can't really demonstrate, then yeah, you're not going to have such a good time, but that really just depends. Now some players, even though this is Minecraft 1.10, so we do have the offhand, some players are still stuck in their old ways, and they really like just playing with one hand. I don't blame you. I don't really care for the offhand system too much. It's not as exciting as everyone thought it was going to be. If you right click with any tool, any standard tool, while you have a torch in your inventory, it'll place that torch. And this will work, of course, just like you would expect it to. It just kind of helps you out a little bit. Another thing that I do with V-Tweaks is I add tool efficiency to some blocks that it should really work on, and it doesn't. So blocks like glass can be more easily broken with a pickaxe, and blocks like leaves get shredded with an axe. So as for item tweaks, V-Tweaks adds 4, but for the sake of demonstration, I'm just going to briefly talk about 3 of them and actually show you one of them. So the first one that I add is you can actually add more burnables with V-Tweaks. This does it just kind of plainly, but any door added by a mod that isn't an iron door will work as a fuel. It'll burn 3 items. These are all calculated pretty carefully. Boats will work as well, And then I've also added a few other blocks, and I'm trying to remember which ones. The list actually goes on. Ladders, as well as signs, and just a few other random ones. Now the other three, I'm just going to briefly describe. Organic saplings is the first one, which makes it so that if a sapling falls on the ground and is going to despawn, instead of despawning, it'll actually try to plant itself first. Now if it can't plant itself, it'll just disappear, so don't worry about it. Secondly, there is chicken egg hatching. So if an egg is about to despawn, similar to the oak saplings, or saplings being plantable, the egg will try to hatch. Now there is a random chance for this to happen, and I usually keep it, it's disabled by default just to prevent a flock of chickens that you did not anticipate, because I've had that happen in my own single player. And the last one is a feature that's also disabled by default, and it is adjustable despawn, item despawning. This is something that I don't personally prefer to change, but some people may want items to instantly despawn or never despawn. So lastly, there's a few other changes that are disabled by default and a few that are enabled, and I would just like to briefly discuss them. The first one is base game changing stuff. It doesn't really change a whole lot, and I don't have it enabled in this particular instance. However, what changes is cobblestone is basically no longer the commodity that it is. It becomes a tough to get item. So whenever you break stone with this option enabled, which like I said, I don't currently have it enabled, but if I did, it would make stone drop flint and gravel. Sometimes just a random chance of either or. And in order to craft stone tools, you're going to require to use flint. Now this doesn't really change much, just kind of, I don't know, shifts around the early game a little bit. It's something you can do if you're wanting a slightly more survivalistic style of a start, but honestly, I prefer to just leave vanilla Minecraft the way it is. The other thing I can do is I've tweaked the stack sizes on several things. Beds have no reason not to stack anymore. I don't know why they ever didn't stack, to be honest with you, but now they do, thanks to V-tweaks, and a handful of other things stack a little bit higher than they used to. So if we take a look at snowballs, snowballs now stack in 64s. So do eggs, and let me find eggs somewhere. There we are. Eggs will now stack in 64. Cake will now stack in stacks of 64. Ender pearls will as well. Basically anything that you found annoying that only stacked up to a weird size will start to stack again. Boats and saddles will as well, and so do doors. All up to 64. Minecarts too. Another thing that you may find pretty useful, I personally like it. Quark just added a similar feature, but I like my own implementation of it because it's pretty unique. If you take a look at any food item in JEI or any interface, and you hold shift, this is the option that is enabled by default, but you can change this. If I take a look here, there's a food value tooltip. If it's set to 0 here, then it won't enable the feature, but if I do 1, then it'll show me these numbers, this feature all the time, no matter what I'm doing. And if I do 2, then it only shows me when I'm sneaking. But you'll notice that all of these foods here have a tooltip. Let me explain the colored boxes. So the colored boxes, if it's a solid red box, then that means that's how many haunches it gives you back in hunger. So this piece of bread, for example, gives me 2 haunches, and then the pinkish box is a half a haunch. So this box gives, or these boxes show you that it gives you back 2.5 hunger back. The saturation is on a scale of color. Red is the worst, and aquamarine is the best. So you'll see that cookies are complete trash. But if we go to something like a melon, it's a little bit better. If we go to something like a steak, yeah, that's going to be top notch. So the best ones are actually between purple and light blue. Those are going to be your best bets. Lastly, if I change weather to thunderstorm, I find thunderstorms really annoying. And you notice something weird happened. I changed it to thunderstorm, but it's not as dark as a thunderstorm normally is. And, let me change it to noon. It's not as dark as a thunderstorm normally is, and well, where's the thunder? I don't get it. Like, this isn't really quite right now, is it? Correct. I find thunderstorms incredibly annoying. They spawn, whenever thunder strikes, it will spawn a fire block, and then whenever the fire gets put out, it will, sometimes, if the area is chunk-loaded but not inhabited by a player, leave behind random ghost light blocks. Really frustrating, makes the terrain look hideous. The sound of thunder is really quite frustrating, so V-Tweaks has an option to completely disable thunderstorms. Now, some people might find this a little bit concerning. I haven't found any sort of conflicts with other mods as far as mods that require thunder. So I think this is so far pretty good, and I keep this option enabled on all of my maps and servers because really, thunderstorms are quite irritating. Now the last thing that I've added that I actually haven't put on the web page yet, but I have done it just for the sake of it, is ping protection. So ping protection is pretty neat. So the more you get hurt by an entity on a server, of course, if you have lower ping, the less it actually will damage you. So I've reduced the damage by a certain amount that is basically based on how low your ping is. So if you have a really, really high ping, which means it takes longer for you to interact with entities, and entities take longer to interact with you, then you're not going to get hurt nearly as much than if you would if you had a good connection to the server. This is just because, really, mobs can get annoying whenever you're getting murdered by them all the time because of a bad connection. So that's kind of something that is used to prevent that. So I think that pretty much covers everything that VTweaks does, and I think for now this is pretty much the complete feature set. There's a few features that are going to be going bye-bye for 1.11 just because, well, not really a few. One specifically, I think the chicken, the despawn stuff where I've changed around spawn times and affect despawning, I do believe I'll be removing that feature just because it seems to be pretty, I don't know, it's not the best implemented. Well, it's as best implemented as I could come up with, but I don't think it's got the best future for it. So I've decided to disable that for 1.11. However, I've gotten everything else working so far in 1.11, so you can expect an early release or beta release coming out pretty soon. If you have any bugs for it, please let me know. And if you have any feature requests, feel free to send them my way. Now keep in mind, here's the criteria for VTweaks. I do not add any new items to VTweaks. VTweaks does not add new items, and it never will. The only thing it will do is enchantments and tweaks. I might consider potions. So beyond that, don't expect me to add any new items. That's exactly the point of VTweaks, is to be as lightweight on the block and item ID count as possible, because realistically, I think that there's ways to add cool features to a game without having to add new things. Just tweak what already is there. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the tutorial, and maybe this might get you a little bit interested in adding this to your own mod pack. Hopefully you will. Let me know what you think. Thanks.